Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Hiro. In this section of the class, we're going to talk about defense. Like I said in the introduction, I really waffled between whether talking about defense first or offense first. Finally decided on talking about defense first because I felt like that made the class flow a little bit better. Alright, so first thing we're going to discuss is the hierarchy of not getting hit. So first thing, how to not get hit is hit them first. Second thing is use distance. In other words, don't be where you can get hit. So if I'm fighting a sword and shield opponent, unless they have like freakishly long arms, I can be reasonably sure that I can outrange them. So that means if I stay out here at the edge of my range, then I'm safe where I can't get hit. The third thing is to dodge or avoid the blow. Fourth thing is to block or parry the blow. And then the fifth thing is to accept the blow. And I'll go over each of those things. So first thing is hit them first. I'm going to wait and discuss that more as we go over basic shots and intermediate shots and that kind of stuff. Second thing is using distance. So it's important to understand range and measure. Range is basically, can I hit my opponent? Measure is basically, can my opponent hit me? So again, like I said a minute ago, if I have longer range than my opponent, then I can stand in range while still being out of measure. I'll discuss range and measure a lot more as we go over single combat later in the class. Third thing is dodging. Some people are naturally good at dodging, and some people are not. I am not, so I don't really have a lot of advice to give. You'll have to go to other teachers for that. Fourth thing is blocking and parrying. First block we're going to go over is an A-frame block, and so that basically looks like this. You want to twist your weapon so that twist your wrists a little bit so that the blade of your weapon is facing into the oncoming attack. You also want to keep the weapon angled so that you're blocking downward shots as well as horizontal shots. So if I were to block like this, then the opponent could hit me with a slot shot, where if I block like this, it's going to be a lot harder for them to do that. So like I said, you want to turn your wrists out, and also if you can, turn your hips into the oncoming attack, and try to keep your elbows tight against your torso. That will give you better structure. Now depending on which direction you're moving or whatever, you may not be able to always turn your hips into attack. So if I was moving this direction, then trying to turn my hips, if I block over here, then trying to turn my hips into that block is going to mess up my movement. So I just have to hope that my arms are solid enough that they don't blow through my block. A-frame block is super useful. That's the one that I use the majority of the time. Next one is a close-in block. It's kind of like an A-frame block, but closer to your body for times when you can't do a proper A-frame. So if I'm close to my opponent like this, then I want to do a close-in block instead of trying to do an A-frame because that's going to be awkward. So close-in block like this. Again, you want to try to turn your hips into the oncoming attack. You can't always do that, but try to. Turn your wrists outward so that you're blocking with the edge of your weapon and not the flat, because that will give you better structure. If you're blocking wrap shots, then you want to turn this direction into the attack, because if I just move my arms like this, then the opponent's wrap shot can reach around my weapon and still hit me. So if I'm trying to block a wrap shot, I really want to turn like this. Next one is a countercut. This is essentially meeting the opponent's attack with your own attack. So if the opponent attacks here, instead of doing an A-frame block and waiting for them to hit, I just cast my weapon out to hit their weapon and disrupt their attack. It's also good if you do a countercut downward. It's good for blocking leg shots, provided that you have enough room. If you're in close, then trying to do a countercut into a leg shot is harder. After an exchange of blows, So if my opponent and I are striking back and forth, if I'm trying to move back out of range, then just throwing a countercut out there will help keep me protected better and dissuade my opponent from trying to follow me. Next block we're going to go over is a slap parry. Unlike the countercut, where I'm trying to hit with the edge of my weapon, the slap parry hits with the flat of my weapon. And so if we go back to the relaxed low guard that I showed earlier in a previous video, then slap parry is really good because you basically just bring the weapon across your body and it's pretty fast. If you're trying to deflect thrusts, Fiona, can you assist me, please? And try to thrust at me. So with thrusts, you only have to deflect their thrust a little bit. So go ahead and thrust again. So I'm only moving her weapon about 1.5 inches, but that's enough for her thrust to not hit me. So when you're trying to deflect thrusts, try to avoid over blocking. Next block I'm going to go over is the hanging guard. Hanging guard looks like this, or like this. I don't use this one very often because I'm not very good with it. If you want to know more about it, then check out some of Duke Mark's videos. Some of the ones in my curated playlist discuss the hanging guard, or you can just check out his YouTube channel, Mark Hollingshead. Last block I'm going to go over is the hand switch block. So a hand switch block is good for close range. Basically, I'm moving my bottom hand to above my other hand. So from here to here to block my leg better. This is good for blocking like leg wraps and stuff. You would only really want to use this in close range because if you're at a more medium to long range, other blocks are usually better. So the hand switch block is best at close range. One thing you want to get in the habit of is in between shots moving through your defense. So if I throw, say, an onside head, then I want to move to an A-frame block as I move to the next shot. I will move to an A-frame block most of the time, but listen to your body and try to figure out what block feels more natural from which positions. This is especially important when you're doing pel work. When you're throwing shots, don't just throw and recover. You want to throw and try to recover through one of your guards or blocks. One thing to remember is that even though this blocking and parrying section is the biggest section in this video, it's still relatively low on the hierarchy of not getting hit. So try to use, hit them first, use distance, and dodging, because those will give you a bigger advantage than blocks and parries. Last thing to discuss is accepting blows. So accepting a blow basically means letting yourself get hit because it gives you some kind of advantage. So examples of accepting a blow: if the opponent throws a shot, say they throw a grab shot, if I step into that and I mess up the rotation, it's still going to hit me, but it's not going to hit solidly because I messed up the rotation. Or, so if I step into that shot or step away, so that shot still hits, but doesn't hit hard enough, it ends up light. So that's one example. Next example is if I know that the opponent is going to shoot for this leg, and I let them take that leg while I throw for the head, then I've traded a limb for a kill, and so I still win that fight. Last one is if you're in a really bad situation and you just throw something wildly, hoping for a double kill. Because then if you get a double kill, usually that means that you'll reset the fight. Alright, last thing I want to discuss is specifically defending against leg shots. If the opponent throws a leg shot, easiest way is just to void the leg. So if they throw at this leg, then I step back with that one. Or if I've got left foot forward and they throw out that leg, just step back so that the shot misses my leg. So that's the easiest way. Second way I already mentioned, but is to countercut down into the blow. And then depending on my position relative to my opponent, there are other things that I can do from that counter cut. I'll go over those more in later videos in this series. Next thing is the hand switch block, which I mentioned. The hand switch block is mostly a close range technique. Switch my hands here to block like this. If you're using a two-handed sword, then when you do a hand switch block, you're going to grab your own blade. Now, it is legal to grab your own blade. It's not legal to grab your opponent's blade, but you can grab your own blade. In fact, it's a historical technique called half swording. If you have a long enough crossguard, none of my swords have crossguards right now, but if you have a long enough crossguard, then you can punch down like this. So imagine that my finger right here is my crossguard. You punch down like this, that will usually defend your legs pretty well. And then my tip is still on line to thrust or whatever. One thing you want to avoid doing is trying to block like this with your pommel. A lot of fighters do that, and really that just means that you're going to get hit in the hands more. And while hand shots don't count, they're not legal shots in heavy combat, getting hit in the hands still sucks. So I think you should avoid it. So once again, just try to avoid this, kind of reach down, block with your handle thing. So that's it for this section. Next section, we're going to go over some of the basic shots and other techniques. So thanks for watching.